Hey viewers, welcome to African Tales by Affy. Please kindly click the subscribe button to get notified for more amazing stories. The city of Delta hummed with life, its streets bustling with traders, children running around barefoot, and the rhythmic sounds of drums echoing from distant corners. It was a city where dreams were built and broken, where love and duty often clashed like waves against the shore. In a small, cozy house near the marketplace, F and Hugo sat on a wooden bench, staring at the golden sunset. The warm evening air carried the scent of roasted plantains from a nearby stall, mixing with the laughter of people returning home from a long day. F, Hugo said, his voice barely above a whisper. Do you ever wonder what life would be like if we had more? If we weren't always counting coins just to eat? F turned to him, her deep brown eyes filled with love and hope. We will have more, Hugo. We just have to be patient. One day, we'll have a big house, a shop of our own, and we won't have to struggle anymore. Hugo sighed, rubbing his rough hands together. He had been working as a carpenter's apprentice for years, hoping to save enough money to open his own workshop. F, on the other hand, spent her days helping her mother sell fabrics at the market. They both had dreams that seemed just out of reach. F leaned her head against his shoulder. No matter what happens, we'll always have each other, right? Hugo smiled, placing a gentle kiss on her forehead. Always. Just then, a loud voice interrupted their moment. F, come home this instant. F's heart sank as she recognized the voice, her father's. He rarely called for her so urgently, and when he did, it was never good news. I have to go, she whispered, squeezing Hugo's hand. I'll see you tomorrow. Hugo nodded but couldn't shake off the uneasy feeling creeping into his chest. F hurried home, her heart pounding. As she entered the small hut, she saw her father, Papa Affy, sitting on his wooden chair, his face stern. Her mother sat quietly by his side, her hands folded in her lap. F, her father began, his deep voice echoing in the small room. You are a woman now. It is time for you to start thinking about your future. F swallowed hard. She didn't like where this conversation was going. I have found you a husband, he continued. A wealthy businessman named Namdi. He owns several shops and has agreed to take care of you. The marriage has been arranged. F's breath caught in her throat. But I don't want to marry him. I love Hugo. Papa Affy's face darkened. Love does not put food on the table. Namdi is a good man, and he will provide for you. This is not up for discussion. Tears welled up in F's eyes. Please, Papa, don't do this. I don't care about money, I just want to be with Hugo. Her father's eyes flashed with anger. If you refuse, you will no longer be my daughter. I will disown you, and you will leave this house with nothing. F looked at her mother, hoping for support, but Mama Affy only lowered her head. Defeated, F turned away, her heart breaking into 1,000 pieces. The next morning, F met Hugo in their usual spot by the riverbank. He could tell something was wrong just by looking at her tear-streaked face. What happened? He asked, grabbing her hands. F's lips trembled. My father, he has arranged for me to marry someone else. Hugo's grip tightened. No, F, you can't marry him. We promised each other, we promised to be together. Aff let out a shaky breath. I tried, Hugo. I begged him, but he won't listen. If I refuse, he will disown me. I have nowhere else to go. Hugo's jaw clenched. He felt helpless, powerless against the cruel world that always seemed to stand between them. But I love you, F, he said, his voice breaking. I love you too, she whispered. And I always will. They held each other tightly, knowing that no amount of love could change the fate that had been decided for them. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the lovers sat in silence, savoring what little time they had left before the world tore them apart. The days leading up to the wedding passed in a blur for F. She felt like a prisoner trapped in a nightmare she couldn't escape. Her father had made it clear she was to marry Namdi, a wealthy businessman who could offer her a life of comfort and security. Despite the fine clothes and expensive jewelry her mother draped over her shoulders, F felt hollow inside. No matter how grand the wedding would be, it meant nothing without Hugo by her side. The morning of the wedding arrived too soon. The entire village was buzzing with excitement. The women prepared steaming pots of jollof rice and pepper soup, while the men set up rows of chairs under a beautifully decorated canopy. Music filled the air as drummers beat their talking drums, and dancers swayed their hips to the rhythm. But in the midst of all the celebration, F sat quietly in her room, staring at her reflection in the mirror. Her wedding dress was breathtaking, a flowing white gown with intricate embroidery, a gift from Namdi. Gold earrings dangled from her ears, matching the heavy necklace resting on her chest. She looked like a bride, but she didn't feel like one. A soft knock on the door pulled her from her thoughts. F, her mother's voice came gently. It is time. F swallowed the lump in her throat and rose to her feet. With every step she took, she felt like she was walking toward her own doom. At the wedding venue, Namdi stood proudly, dressed in a regal agbada, his cap tilted slightly to the side. He was a man of power and status, and he carried himself as such. The moment he saw F approaching, he smiled in satisfaction. She was beautiful, just as he had expected. But F's eyes were elsewhere, searching the crowd for Hugo. She knew he wouldn't come, but still, a part of her hoped. As the ceremony began, the elders chanted blessings, and the village cheered. F's father beamed with pride, believing he had secured a bright future for his daughter. Then, just as the final rites were about to be completed, a voice rang out from the crowd. F! Gasps filled the air as Hugo pushed through the people, his face full of desperation. His clothes were wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot from sleepless nights of grief. F, don't do this, he pleaded, his voice breaking. Please don't marry him. Murmurs spread through the gathering. People exchanged glances, whispering among themselves. F's heart pounded against her chest. She wanted to run to him, to throw herself into his arms and never look back. But then she saw her father's face, his eyes burning with anger, his hands clenched into fists. If she defied him now, she would lose everything. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she turned away from Hugo. I'm sorry, she whispered, though she knew he would never hear it. A heavy silence fell over the crowd as the priest concluded the ceremony. It was done. F was now Namdi's wife. That night, in a grand mansion in Oka, F sat alone in the bedroom Namdi had prepared for her. The room was beautifully furnished, with silk curtains and a bed so large it felt empty with only her in it. Namdi had been kind, he had given her space, allowing her to settle in at her own pace. But kindness could not fill the void in her heart. As she lay down, staring at the ceiling, a silent tear slipped down her cheek. Miles away, in a small, dark room, Hugo sat with his head in his hands, his heart shattered beyond repair. Despite the pain, despite the heartbreak, they both made a promise in their hearts. They would love each other forever. The days after the wedding were suffocating for F. Namdi was generous. He showered her with gifts, praised her beauty, and spoke of their future together with excitement. Yet, in her heart, she felt nothing but emptiness. One evening, as they sat on the balcony of their grand home in Oka, Namdi admired the sunset while sipping palm wine. "You will grow to love me, F," he said, his voice full of confidence. F stared at the sky, her fingers tightening around the cup in her hand. "Love isn't something that can be forced, Namdi." He chuckled. "Forced? No, my dear. I am giving you everything a woman could ever desire. A luxurious home, fine clothes, a successful husband, what more do you need?" F turned to him, her eyes sad but firm. "Love." For a brief moment, Namdi's smile faltered. He took a deep breath and set his cup down. "Love is a fragile thing, F. It doesn't always come the way we expect. But respect? Partnership? These things are strong." He reached out to touch her hand, but she pulled away. He sighed. "I know you still think of him." F's heart skipped a beat. "Who? Don't insult me, F." His voice was calm, but there was a sharp edge to it. "Hugo." She looked away, guilt pressing down on her chest. "I am not a fool," Namdi continued. "But I am a patient man. One day, you will see that I am the better choice." F didn't respond. She wasn't sure she ever would. That night, when Namdi fell asleep, F sat by the window, the silver moonlight casting long shadows across the room. She reached under the bed and pulled out a small wooden box. Inside it were a few of her most treasured things, one of them, a letter she had written for Hugo. Her hands trembled as she unfolded the paper. "Hugo, my love. Not a day passes that I don't think of you. I am trapped in a life that is not mine, wearing a name that does not belong to me. But my heart still beats for you, asterisk asterisk. Meet me in Oka. I will find a way for us to be together. Always, asterisk asterisk. F." She bit her lip, her pulse racing. This was dangerous, reckless even, but she couldn't let him slip away from her life. She quickly sealed the letter and tucked it inside a fabric pouch. Tomorrow, she would send it with one of the traders traveling to Delta. She had made her choice. A week later, in a small carpentry shop in Delta, Hugo wiped sweat from his forehead as he carved the leg of a wooden stool. Business had been slow since the wedding. He barely ate, barely slept, lost in his misery. Just then, a young boy ran into the shop, panting. "Are you Hugo?" Hugo looked up, startled. "Yes, who's asking?" The boy grinned and pulled out a small pouch. "A woman gave me this. Said it was very important." Hugo's hands shook as he took the pouch. The moment he saw F's handwriting, his breath caught. He tore it open and read the letter. His eyes widened, his heart pounding against his ribs. "She still loves me," he whispered. His assistant, Matsi Obi, leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. "What's that?" Yugo looked up, determination blazing in his eyes. "She wants me to come to Oka." Matsi Obi frowned. "You sure that's a good idea?" "I don't care if it's a bad idea," Yugo said, standing up. "I'm going." Matsi Obi sighed. "You're playing with fire, my friend." Yugo smiled for the first time in weeks. "Then let me burn." 3 days later, under the cover of darkness, Yugo arrived in Oka. The town was lively even at night, market stalls glowing under oil lamps, voices calling out deals, the air thick with the scent of roasted meat and spices. F had told him where to meet her. A small alley behind the boutique Namdi had opened in her name. Yugo leaned against the wall, his heart thudding in his chest. Then, footsteps. He turned, and there she was. For a moment, neither of them spoke. They simply stood there, staring at each other as if afraid that speaking would shatter the moment. Then F rushed into his arms. "I thought I would never see you again," she whispered. Yugo held her tightly. "I would cross the world for you." F pulled away just enough to look into his eyes. "I sent you money. Start something here in Oka. Be close to me." Yugo frowned. "F, this is dangerous. If Namdi finds out." "I don't care," she interrupted. "I can't live without you." Yugo cupped her face, his thumb brushing against her cheek. "Then we'll find a way. No matter what." F smiled, a tear slipping down her cheek. Neither of them knew that, hidden in the shadows, someone else had been watching them. The cool night air wrapped around F and Yugo like a silent warning. The narrow alley where they stood felt safe, hidden away from the world. But neither of them knew that a pair of watchful eyes had been following their every move. From the shadows, Odogwu, one of Namdi's trusted men, leaned against a wooden post, his arms crossed as he observed the secret meeting. A sly grin spread across his face as he quietly slipped away into the night. He had seen enough. The next morning, F sat in the boutique Namdi had given her. It was a beautiful shop, filled with fabrics imported from faraway lands, silks that shimmered, cotton so soft it felt like water slipping through one's fingers. Women from all over Oka came to buy from her, praising her taste. Yet, despite her success, she felt nothing. Her mind was still lost in the warmth of Yugo's embrace from the night before. She had told him to stay in Oka. She had given him money to start a business, to be near her. Was it reckless? Perhaps. But she didn't care. A sudden, sharp voice pulled her out of her thoughts. "Madam F, someone is here to see you." F turned to see one of her assistants standing by the door. Behind her was Odogwu, Namdi's right-hand man. A strange chill crawled up her spine. She forced a smile. "Odogwu, what brings you here?" Odogwu stepped inside, his tall frame casting a long shadow across the floor. He smirked, rubbing his chin. "Ah, Madam F, you know me. I only go where there is something interesting to see." F swallowed. Something about the way he looked at her sent alarm bells ringing in her head. "Is there a problem?" she asked, keeping her voice steady. Odogwu took a step closer. "You tell me, madam." Aff's fingers tightened around the edge of the counter. I don't understand. Odogwu leaned in, lowering his voice. I saw you last night. Aff's breath hitched. I don't know what you're talking about. Odogwu chuckled darkly. Ah, madam, don't insult my intelligence. I saw you. I saw him. His smile widened. Do you think you can hide such things from Namdi? Aff's heart pounded in her chest. What do you want? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Odogwu tilted his head. Want? Ah, madam, you wound me. I am only loyal to my master. He straightened up. And I think he would be very interested in what I know. Aff felt cold. Please, she said, swallowing her pride. Odogwu, you are a good man. You don't need to tell him. Odogwu tapped his chin as if considering her words. Then he grinned. Perhaps we can make a little arrangement. Aff's stomach twisted. What kind of arrangement? Odogwu's eyes darkened. Something simple. You make sure I leave here a rich man, and I forget what I saw. Aff clenched her fists. She wanted to slap that smug look off his face. How much? She asked through gritted teeth. Odogwu leaned closer. 5,000 cowries. And don't make me wait too long. With that, he turned and strolled out of the boutique, whistling a tune. Aff gripped the counter, trying to steady her breathing. She had to warn Yugo. That evening, Yugo was in the small stall he had rented with the money Aff gave him. He had already started buying wood and carving tools, determined to start fresh. But when Aff rushed in, her face pale with fear, he knew something was wrong. Aff, he asked, stepping toward her. What happened? She closed the door behind her and turned to him. Namdi's man, Odogwu, he saw us. Yugo stiffened. Are you sure? She nodded. He came to my shop today. He's blackmailing me. He wants 5,000 cowries to keep quiet. Yugo cursed under his breath. That snake. Aff wrung her hands. If we don't pay, he'll tell Namdi everything. Yugo took a deep breath, trying to control his anger. Then we'll pay him. Aff looked at him in shock. With what money? I gave you almost everything I had to start this business. Yugo's jaw clenched. I don't care about the business if it means keeping you safe. Aff grabbed his hands. I can't keep doing this, Yugo. Hiding, lying, it's eating me alive. Yugo cupped her face, forcing her to look at him. Then let's run. Her eyes widened. What? Let's leave Oka, he said firmly. Let's go somewhere far away where no one can find us. Aff's heart raced. The thought of escaping, of being free with Yugo, was tempting. But it was also impossible. Namdi would never let me go, she whispered. Then let him try to stop us, Yugo said, determination burning in his eyes. Aff hesitated. This was madness. But wasn't her entire life already madness? She exhaled sharply. Give me time. Let me think. Hugo nodded. Whatever you decide, I'm with you. They stood there for a moment, holding on to each other as if the world was closing in around them. Neither of them knew that at that very moment, Namdi had already begun to suspect something. And soon, there would be nowhere left to hide. Use the boutique, her heart stopped at the sight before her. Namdi was waiting. Dressed in his usual fine attire, he leaned against his expensive carriage, his expression unreadable. Odogwu stood beside him, smirking. Aff's blood ran cold. "Good morning, my dear wife," Namdi said smoothly. "Going somewhere?" Aff swallowed hard. "Just to get some fresh air." Namdi studied her, then sighed dramatically. "You see, my love, I have been hearing the most interesting stories." Odogwu chuckled. "Very interesting indeed." Aff's hands curled into fists. "I hear you have been quite generous," Namdi continued. "Giving money to a certain man, meeting him in secret." His voice turned cold. "Did you think I wouldn't find out?" Aff's throat went dry. "Namdi, I..." He raised a hand, silencing her. "Don't lie to me, Aff. Not now." Silence fell between them. Then, with an eerie calm, Namdi turned to Odogwu. "Bring him." Aff's heart stopped. "What?" From behind the carriage, two guards dragged Hugo forward, his hands bound, his face bruised. "Hugo!" Aff screamed, trying to rush to him, but Odogwu grabbed her arm. Namdi watched her reaction carefully. His face darkened. "So it's true." Aff fought against Odogwu's grip. "Let him go, Namdi. He's done nothing wrong." Namdi's eyes flashed with fury. "Nothing wrong? You dishonored me, Aff. You made a fool of me in front of everyone. And this man," he spat the word, "thought he could steal what is mine." Hugo lifted his chin despite his pain. "She was never yours, Namdi. She never loved you." The words cut deep. Namdi clenched his jaw. Then, in a swift motion, he drew a small dagger from his belt. Aff screamed. "No! Please!" Namdi walked toward Hugo, his voice deadly calm. "You took my wife. My dignity. My trust. Tell me, why should I let you live?" Hugo met his gaze without fear. "Because no matter what you do, she will never love you." Namdi's hand trembled on the dagger. His face twisted with rage, with heartbreak. Then, suddenly, he turned and stabbed the dagger into a wooden post beside them. Aff gasped. Namdi exhaled shakily, running a hand over his face. "Take him away," he ordered his guards. Aff struggled against Odogwu. "No! Where are you taking him?" Namdi's voice was empty. "As far away from here as possible." Aff turned to him, desperation in her eyes. "Please, Namdi. I'll do anything. Just don't hurt him." Namdi studied her for a long moment, then let out a bitter laugh. "You would beg for his life, but not for our marriage?" Aff didn't answer. They both knew the truth. With a deep sigh, Namdi shook his head. I should have known. You were never mine to begin with. Then, without another word, he turned and walked away. Hugo was dragged off into the distance. And just like that, everything was over. A month later, F sat alone in her father's house. Her marriage to Namdi had been dissolved. Stripped of everything he had given her, she was sent back in shame. The villagers whispered about her betrayal, pointing and judging as she walked through the streets. Meanwhile, Namdi, though heartbroken, moved on. His business thrived, and he found peace in his work, vowing never to let love blind him again. As for Hugo, he was sent far away, never to return. Some said he was taken across the river, forced to start a new life. Others whispered that he had perished in exile. Aff never knew the truth. All she had left were memories. And regret. The story of F, Hugo, and Namdi became a lesson for generations to come, a reminder that love, loyalty, and truth must always walk hand in hand. Hello tribe, hope we enjoyed today's story. Please kindly put what you've learned in the comments section. Please remember to hit the like button, share this to your friends and family as well as subscribe. See you on the next one. Bye.